As of March 27th, 2025, the protests in Turkey regarding the arrest of Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu have been ongoing for 8 days. İmamoğlu was detained on March the 19th, 2025, leading to widespread demonstrations across the country. Over the past week, these protests have intensified with significant gatherings in major cities all over the country, but especially focused in Istanbul. Law enforcement have responded with measures such as pepper spray, tear gas, and rubber bullets to disperse the crowds. The Turkish government has reported the detention of nearly 1,900 individuals in connection with the protests. Among those arrested are close aides to İmamoğlu and other members of the opposition Republican Party, Republican People's Party, CHP, but also journalists and photographers, and from the foreign press. President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan has dismissed the demonstrations as a show and has warned of legal consequences for all participants. Opposition parties have announced plans to expand the protests, including organizing large-scale rallies in every city and a massive demonstration in Istanbul on Saturday, the 29th of March. They have stated that the protests will continue until İmamoğlu is released or early presidential elections are scheduled. The situation remains dynamic with ongoing developments as both protesters and authorities maintain their positions. Stavros Kalenteridis, thank you for joining us today to help provide clarity to the developing events internally in Turkey.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Stavros, the first question is a very short one. Why the timing? Why now has Erdoğan taken this action? What makes this the perfect timing for him?
All right. So there is the timing, I guess, is the best timing for Erdogan, and the response to this, the answer to the question is twofold. First and foremost, the global conditions, the global situation, both in terms of his close relationship with the U.S. President Donald Trump, and also the need of the EU to keep Turkey in this alliance that they want to build inside the continent. Nobody at this time, nobody can actually alienate the Turks. Nobody can spare to lose the Turks. Both Donald Trump, these guys, Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Trump, are close friends. Even from Trump's first tenure at the White House, they have been really close. He has been praised. Erdogan has been praised by the Trump administration, from everybody, of his successes, that he's a strong man, he's a strong leader. This is a great country, Trump said regarding Turkey. That is why nobody is actually condemning Erdogan right now. His foreign minister, Hakan Fidan, visited Washington. He met with Marco Rubio. So it seems that his bets were, he was on spot. Maybe he had coordinated this with Washington, that this is what I'm about to do. Trump doesn't really care about human rights, democracy. He's really friends with, the autocrats of the world. So that's one part of the story. So on the European continent, everybody is in need of Turkey's defense industry. Turkey's army. Turkey has the largest army after the U.S. obviously. So they have the biggest army, the second biggest army in NATO. So they're needed because it seems that the EU wants to go at it alone against Russia now. So they're in need of Turkey. We are in this process of rearming Europe. Again, the Turkish defense industry, the military-industrial complex, I would say, of Turkey is really interesting for the European leaders in Brussels. So again, we're not seeing any condemnation from Europe, and there's not going to be any condemnation coming. So this is the geopolitical element, and then we have the domestic front. Really, really important. We have some coincidences that nobody should believe that they're coincidences. We had this past Sunday, we had the primaries for the CHP, the Republican Party in Turkey, and obviously Ekrem İmamoğlu, the now jailed main political opponent of Erdogan. He was about to get nominated. He was nominated, actually, even from his jail cell. he is nominated now. So this is one coincidence. So the next presidential elections are about to take place. They're scheduled to take place in 2028, and the Erdogan calculations, according to his calculations, he's thinking that the people will react now with protests violently, what have you, but things will wind down until 2028. Nobody will remember this incident. Ekrem İmamoğlu will be in jail, and he will have the time to deal with his problems up until then. So both domestic and on the geopolitical front, it seems that this was the best timing to do this coup.
So in Imamoglu, Erdogan sees his strongest political ally to the presidential
Opponent.
right, and
Opponent.
in opponent. Sorry. So he's trying to, but even by putting him in jail, is there no other strong political opponent that can emerge from the Republican Party against Erdogan? Is that all they got, Imamoglu?
So interestingly, the DHP, the Republican Party, the Kemalist Party in Turkey, which is not really a democratic party if you think about it, but let's say we have two big parties in Turkey: the AKP, the Justice and Development Party of Erdogan, and the Kemalist Republican Party. So this party is they have been creating alliances domestically, and one of the other main figures of this big alliance, this umbrella party that the Republican Party is in Turkey, is the mayor of Ankara, the capital, right? So Ekrem İmamoğlu was until yesterday the mayor of Istanbul. Now another big player here is the mayor of Ankara, Mansur Yavaş. The problem with this guy, with this potential presidential candidate, is that because he hails politically from the Grey Wolves, the chauvinist, ultra nationalist political party, I would say, movement in Turkey. So he hails from them. He was a member of them. Used to be a member of the Devlet Bahçeli party, the one who actually works with Erdogan today in government. So because he used to be a member of them, he doesn't have the support of the Kurds. So the Kurds they're going to be the kingmakers in this in any election, but especially in the 2028 election, the Kurdish vote will be the king-making vote, and they will not be supporting Mansur Yavaş. They would be supporting Ekrem İmamoğlu. They did support him in the mayorship election. That's why he won this big prize, which is the mayorship of Istanbul. What the leader of the party, the Republican Party, Özgür Özel, the actual chairman of the party, what he said, their strategy is that they nominated Ekrem İmamoğlu. They're going to go with him, even if he's jailed. But if the election committee doesn't permit him to run, even from inside his cell, then what they're going to be doing is they're going to be placing another candidate like as a placeholder. It would be only a candidate in name only, but it's going to be Imamoglu. In essence, maybe they're going to promote the idea of his wife, Imamoglu's wife, as a candidate, and this placeholder candidate will win the presidential election according to this strategy, and then they will free basically Ekrem İmamoğlu. So it's going to be like a scheme of sorts because the president can pardon the Imamoglu. So that is the idea. They're going to stick with him, and if it's not possible, they're going to go with his wife probably.
Two questions regarding elections in Turkey. Imamoglu was elected the mayor of Istanbul. But didn't Erdogan cancel elections for back then, and then they had to do them again? So how come Imamoglu ended up getting elected? Because Erdogan canceled the elections when he didn't win the prize of Istanbul.
Yeah, actually, I like the term Constantinople. I'll be using that from now on. So the 2019 elections that you mentioned was the big win for Imamoglu, and this is what this was what made him the big player in Turkish politics that he is today. Indeed, the Turkish president, because this is Constantinople is the biggest city in the country, the richest city, the more the one with the lucrative deals with the business people, the one that has the most links with the outside world, the Western world. So this is something. If you control Constantinople, you can gain a lot of its wealth for your political campaigns, for instance, right? So this was a big loss for Erdogan when Imamoglu won. So he used some staged irregularities in 2019 to cancel the elections. The election result, they did a rerun elections, and then the people reacted actually, and because of the people realizing that this was another coup back in 2019, they came strongly, even more
Mm-hmm.
strongly for Imamoglu, and he won with a wider margin.
Mm-hmm.
So in the rerun election, he came stronger, and he became the biggest player right now and the biggest opponent that Erdogan has.
Okay. And the other question I have that we'd like clarification on for our viewers regarding elections in Turkey is how many times can Erdogan run for the presidency? I mean, he's been president for like a quarter of a century almost, right?
Yes. So this is actually his third term in office. The constitution says that you have a two-term limit, but because they amended the constitution, this is his current tenure is his second in the amended constitution. Let's say so. This is his final term. There's no option for him to run again unless he amends the constitution again and again and again, and that's what he's trying to do. So to amend the constitution, you need to have 360 MPs in parliament. Right now, his government coalition has 319
Mm.
votes. So he needs, that's why I mentioned the Kurds are the kingmakers here. He needs the Dem party. The Dem party is the Kurdish party, essentially. This is the third largest party after AKP, after CHP is the Dem party, the Kurdish party. They have 57 MPs, which along with the 319 that Erdogan has, this brings them over the top of the 360 MPs that he needs to basically amend the constitution. He can run for the third term. Yes.
Thank you for those clarifications. Now, regarding the demonstrations, what do you have to say about the Turkish government arresting nearly 1,900 individuals, including Westerners, Western journalists and photographers?
Well, I mean, it seems that obviously there's no one to stop him, right? So both the European leadership and the American leaders, I would say the Europeans, because of their corruption as well. Remember Qatargate? This was linked with Turkey as well. Turkey was paying European parliamentarians, so there's also the corruption level here. Nobody's saying anything about these incidents. The Council of Europe, Turkey is a member of the Council of Europe, which is an international organization dealing with human rights violations. They did manage to say something, but they don't have the capacity and the strength to sanction Turkey or to stop them in any way. Only the EU and the US could do that. Nobody's willing. So yes, we're seeing a major power grab. There's no rule of law. The Erdogan controls the courts in the country. Really, it's really interesting the fact that he's not only attacking Imamoglu, he's now attacking the major opposition party, the CHP, the Republicans. He's saying that the CHP is behind these riots, and these are not protests, but they're like terrorist riots. He's trying to link them with terrorism. He's threatening them. He's saying that there's some bigger things in store against them. That's what he's saying. That the investigations are ongoing, and there may be more things coming in the near future. He's basically saying that we're not going to surrender to street terrorism. And he also said that this major opposition party, again, the second biggest party in Turkey, could lose its status as a legitimate party due to not only corruption, the charges, but street terrorism. As I said, it's problematic rhetoric. Rhetoric is also, it seems, a problem in Turkey right now, and their links, the CHP links to marginal groups, and Erdogan is referring to the Kurds. So because the CHP they work together with they allied themselves with the Kurdish party, the Dem party, for the local elections 2023. Erdogan is saying that this alliance of sorts is an alliance with terrorist groups, and it seems that he wants to break apart this party. So he wants to dismantle it. Maybe he wants to make them illegal. In this with this form or name. But again, this is the party of Mustafa Kemal. This is like really really big what Erdogan is doing. This is the party of the founding father of Turkey.
Yes, but let's not forget he already did a major crackdown on the army a few years back, which were predominantly Kemalists, and he did manage to do that and place his own people in the high-ranking positions in the army, in the generals. So it's not out of reach for him. He's capable of anything, right?
Yeah,
He's
after he
proven it.
survived,
Yeah.
the coup. But again, this is also what we need to take into consideration, how the people will react, right? So yes, the deep state is with him, but the people, obviously, they have this party and this founder of Turkey as someone, as the party that should be in politics. If you outlaw this party, this is truly, we're talking about not only dictatorship but maybe tyranny in Turkey.
Yeah. Now, the political turmoil is severely is creating a big blow on the Turkish economy. Its lira was already heavily devalued, but now it's under severe pressure. Central bank has intervened to prevent a further devaluation. How is it all playing out from the economic perspective? I mean, how are foreign investors reacting to Imamoglu's arrest? Could the political crisis lead to an economic collapse of Turkey?
Yes, I think this is the one thing that Erdogan truly pays heed to. He's really worried about the state of the economy. This is something that could break this government, because, as you said, the day that Imamoglu was arrested, we saw the stock exchange reacting negatively. We saw the lira crashing, Turkish lira crashing. Obviously, many foreign investors, they massively exited. They abandoned the country. Nobody feels safe to do any business here. Obviously, investors, they were caught off guard, but they didn't expect, they didn't see this coming. They thought that this is, and truly, Erdogan crossed the Rubicon in this instance. So what's most important, I think, is that the central bank is trying to defend the lira, and they have been spending $30 billion up to this day to defend the lira, which is a massive amount of money spent on this coup. And I don't know how long
since Imamoglu's arrest in just 9 days, 30 billion.
Yes, 30 billion.
Wow.
They have burned this money to support their national currency, and I don't know how much they can, spend more. How long they can do this to stop the lira from crashing, because it's already plunging. I don't know if they can keep this up. I think this is the one thing that the regime is afraid most.
So if Erdogan's regime is at risk, if it reaches a point of facing an existential threat, his regime, do you see that he could escalate tensions with Greece or the Kurds in order to distract from the domestic unrest? Do you foresee him, I don't know, staging a provocation as a means of consolidating his power again and rallying domestic support again? I mean, should Greece and Cyprus be worried with what's happening internally in Turkey? Or should it just be going, okay, these are internal matters of Turkey? How serious should our politicians be looking at this?
No, I think we should be really afraid about such a scenario, right? So, yes, I agree with this. We could see something like a false flag, like something like that being staged by the Erdogan regime to, turn the people's attention away from the domestic front and create a tension, create a crisis of sorts. And indeed, the targets would be the traditional elements, the traditional enemies of the Turkish regime, and these enemies are obviously the Kurds, and then Greece and Cyprus, maybe Armenia, but this has been dealt with. So yes, both of these, both the Greek people and the Kurdish people would be possible targets for Erdogan to find an excuse to quell and stop any protest domestically, and say we have like military law or something like that, and basically deal with the foreign threat, let's say. But it's going to be a false flag, obviously, incident organized and orchestrated by the regime to survive. Yeah.
So, Stavros, can you please provide some clarity on the matter and explain to the viewers, are Turkish Republicans, the Kemalist party, truly more moderate as some analysts and politicians in Greece and the US believe, or which want the people to believe? Or is this a misconception about their political stance and their potential policies? I mean, will a transition to a Kemalist leadership bring stability and democracy to Turkey?
Quite the contrary. I would say that they're worse than the Islamists of Recep Tayyip Erdogan. They're really the worst. Actually, they're the ones who created all these wars in our region. It wasn't Erdogan who did. Like for instance, in Cyprus, right? It was this party, the Kemalist party, and the prime minister at the time, Abdulaziz, behind the two-time invasion, illegal invasion and annexation of the northern part of Cyprus, and the illegal occupation even to this very day. So they were the ones behind this. This party, even Imamoglu, this guy, he studied in Kerinia, in the illegally occupied part of Cyprus, which has been obviously condemned by the UN as an illegally part of Cyprus by Turkey. This guy studied there. He has made statements in the past like that he is the successor and a follower of Topal Osman. Topal Osman was an insidious person responsible for the genocide of Greeks and Armenians in Pontus and the Greater Anatolia region. So Ekrem Mamul was saying, I am a successor and follower of this genocide killer and person responsible for massacres, Topal Osman. The party, the Republicans, they have been really chauvinistic in their rhetoric in the Turkish parliament as well. They have been claiming that Greece has illegally occupies more than 100 islands in the Aegean, and that Erdogan permits us to occupy them, and Erdogan is not doing anything about that. So again, the ultra nationalistic, chauvinistic rhetoric as well. So across the board, you'll find many instances. Actually, you know what? It was JHP. It was JHP, the Republicans. They were shamefully complicit when the Kurdish leaders, Demirtas, Selahattin Demirtas, and Figen Yüksekdag were also jailed. Political opponents of Erdogan, the third party, as I said, the Kurdish party, the third biggest party in Turkey, they were jailed as well, and JHP was shamefully complicit. So I guess they had it coming in a sense that they cultivated this neo-fascist regime in their country, and they fully supported it.
Yes. Could you please mention about the jailing of the two Kurdish leaders? I mean, when did that happen? Because people need to know that it's not now that Turkey has fallen into disarray, and Erdogan is imprisoning his political opponents.
Yes. So it was in 2016 when they
Exactly.
were imprisoned, along with his co-president of the HDP party, which was the predecessor of the Dem party that I mentioned before, the Kurdish party, along with his co-president Figen Yüksekdag. They were arrested because of alleged links with terrorism. Allegedly, let us remind our viewers that the Kurdish party in Turkey is not a terrorist party; it's an actual political party. What is a state sponsoring terrorism is the Erdogan regime. The Erdogan regime is a state who sponsors terrorism, and I'm talking about Al Qaeda, ISIS in the Middle East, even to this very day, by supporting ex Al Qaeda leaders in Syria. They're the ones who were funding, training, and supporting these extremists in the region. Nobody was talking about it. Again, we saw the silence by both Brussels and Washington, and I would say Greece and Cyprus, unfortunately. So this regime was behind the terrorist links, not these political leaders, and they have been imprisoned since then. So again, I need to mention this and highlight the fact that the JHP was fully in support of jailing politicians, and I guess they're now dealing with the same attacks as well.
Thank you for that. So, this goes contrary to what many outsiders, and especially Westerners, believe that removing Erdogan will solve Turkey's democratic crisis because the systemic issues will remain. And regarding that, one of the final questions is, can you just tell us how has Erdogan indoctrinated 35 million Turks into a nationalist and intolerant ideology? How has he managed to do that?
Yeah,
Because
well,
goes to prove that even if he gets removed, the systemic issues will remain.
yes, that is accurate. That is right. And obviously, through the education system, they do educate their kids right now about the blue homeland doctrine, as it's called in Turkey, which actually wants Turkey wants to cut the Aegean in half and steal half of the Greek islands. And this is something that young Turks are now being taught in schools. But not only that, this guy has been in power since more than 20 years now. So obviously, you're right. More than 35 million Turks have been going through this indoctrination. This neo-fascist ideologies have been permeating through the whole apparatus of the country, through the bureaucracy, because he appointed obviously the leadership all these years, the military as well. As you mentioned, after the coup, he put his own people in place again, sharing these neo-fascist, xenophobic, and racist ideologies. We see this all these years against the Kurds, the Armenians, the racist attacks, targeting of mobs. So this has been happening in the bureaucracy, in the foreign service, everywhere. People of his, handpicked by this regime, they have been appointed, and they have been basically transforming the whole of the state, the infrastructure, and society. Unfortunately, following these ideologies. So this, only a democratization process would basically entail the Kurdish people getting their rights and recognized and acknowledged in the constitution. Free elections. This is something that will be really transformative, but I don't think this is coming anytime soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Stavros Kalenteridis, for your informative and insightful analysis. Hope we'll be able to host you again soon.
Thank you for having me.